Hi, in this video, we're going to go over page 93 and 95. Now, page 93's question, how has Jack's life been influenced by New Zealand's past? That's virtually exactly the same as question number one on page 95. So we'll just answer both of those questions at the same time. So on page 95, it asks, how do historical events and natural environment influence Jack's life? Now, Jack lives in New Zealand, which is an island in the South Pacific. If you look for it on a map, it is east of Australia. So as being a member of an island country, he has many opportunities for water sports. So he does that, the waka ama, racing on canoes, designed for use on the open ocean. And historical events do influence his life. Now, the British colonization of New Zealand during the 1800s meant that the Maori lost their island and much of their culture. Jack and other Maori have to work hard to recapture a connection to their culture. Jack studies the Maori language, is one of the leaders of the school's Kapahaka team, a group that performs traditional Maori art and combines singing, dancing, and combat techniques. So if you take a look at the culture of the Maori, we can make a lot of connections to First Nations culture here in Saskatchewan. They experience many similar events to what the Maori did. Okay, question number two. What historical factors shaped the way you live? Now, there's a lot of different things you guys could put in there. Some of the things you could take a look at are the events from the Hutterite history book. So the development of the Hutterites in Tyrol, the religious persecution which forced them to go farther east into Europe, then eventually arriving in Russia, and then how the Hutterites were being forced to join the military, causing them to move to the United States of America. And then once we see the Hutterites in the United States, you saw the religious persecution for the conscientious objectors during World War I, which led Hutterites to emigrating into Canada. Now, from the book, there's many examples they provided for people in the prairies, so such as the settlement of the West, First Nations moved on to reserves, and immigration from Western Europe. The coming of the Northwest Mounted Police, settlement of the West in a relatively peaceful and orderly manner. Confederation. It develops east-west instead of north-south, and the territory known as Saskatchewan doesn't belong to the United States. The coming of the railroad played a major factor in the history of Saskatchewan. It connected Saskatchewan to the rest of Canada and brought economic prosperity to the prairies. The Great Depression and the drought of the 1930s, the poverty and the discouragement affected a generation of Saskatchewan people and reinforced the ethic of hard work and faith. It also dramatically changed the population of Saskatchewan. We had a population as large as we do now in the 1930s, but once the Great Depression hit, thousands and thousands of people left Saskatchewan for other areas. Another one is the Indian Act, how it's dominated and controlled the lives of First Nations in Saskatchewan. The numbered treaties, how Saskatchewan First Nations and the governments agreed on a way of sharing the land. The First and Second World Wars, those definitely affected many families in Saskatchewan. Many communities lost a great number of their young men. Residential schools has affected generations of First Nations children who also lost their language, culture, and suffered abuse. And a lot of those effects persist today. One of the great ones in our history of Saskatchewan and Canada is the establishment of universal Medicare. All of Canada benefits daily from this foresight and determination of Tommy Douglas, who established universal Medicare in Saskatchewan. And with everything going on with the pandemic right now, I think that one is absolutely a great historical event in our history. Just compare what's happening to Canadians who are affected by COVID-19 as opposed to the Americans who do not have medical insurance. I'm very thankful for it. Some more recent events that have affected many people's lives. The September 11th attack in 2001, travel abroad became very difficult for a lot of people. Airlines intensified their security and screenings. A lot of people were put on the no-fly list. And if we go to the last month, the COVID-19 pandemic is definitely a historical event that is affecting us, and it's going to cause a lot of changes for the next probably decade. It's going to be very interesting what's going to happen in the next few months with that. Okay, question 3. How have the lives of other people in your school, community, or province been influenced by historical factors different from those that influenced your life? Okay, so that one's a little bit of a difficult question to answer, with everyone essentially having the same background as you in your class. So maybe I'll pull out some of my personal events that could be maybe a little bit slightly different from you. So if I take a look at my one great-grandfather, if it wasn't for World War I, he wouldn't have had to have fled Romania. So he ended up immigrating to Canada. I take a look at Sherry's father. He was born during World War II in France while it was being occupied by Germany. If it wasn't for the devastation in Germany during World War II, they probably would have stayed in Germany and wouldn't have immigrated to Canada. So that's definitely affected my life, both those wars.